On this episode of Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, we talk about digital marketing versus print. We talk about privacy laws, artificial intelligence, and the future of digital marketing. We talked about how to plan your business long-term with a digital marketing plan to beat Zillow. It's going to be an incredible show. Tune in. You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, James Dwiggins, along with my co-host, Keith Robinson, a.k.a. Crazy Uncle Keith.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about Matt Marx, the CEO and co-founder of eVocalize, and what we are talking about.
Man, we covered a lot of stuff. We dug in on advertising. We dug in on why real estate marketing sucks.
That was me.
We talked about digital media and the future of it. Candidly, one of the best answers I've heard to the question of what would you implement today into your business. And oh, by the way, our first ever podcast, Earthquake, mid-recording. So don't miss.
It was
this one,
so
kid.
big that it shook the headphones off of Matt. It was awesome. So in Texas, and the earthquake was in California. Go figure.
It was a big one. It was a big one. So
I get it.
Check it out, kid.
Put in your ears. Matt, welcome to the show. We are excited to have you here while Keith coughs into his microphone.
I was muted.
That's true. You were muted. So it was quick hands, by the way.
Yeah.
Matt and I have known each other for a while. I classify you. I'm going to actually call you the digital Yoda today. The digital advertising Yoda is what we're going to do
Is
today.
that because of my cup? Did you literally do that?
I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's so funny.
Hey, Matt. Yoda best, Matt.
Yoda best.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
You are in for a show, my friends. So let's start out with
Digital
typical.
Yoda. Yeah.
Just give us a little bit of your background so the listeners and viewers know who you are and what you do.
But make sure you end it at Digital Yoda because that's pretty great.
Hey, at least it's not because I look like Yoda, guys. That would be
fair.
That'd be a little more like Obi-Wan Kenobi a little bit.
It's kind of what I expected.
Maybe switch it up.
Where I expected you to go, James, with this thing.
Now that you say that, I might take it that way.
I don't know, man. I'll take it. I've been called worse. Guys, thanks for having me on. Really love the pod. Listen to it all the time. So it's a great work.
Yes,
great work.
our first listener.
Yes.
Building up the pod.
If you could get your mom to subscribe too, that'd be great.
Just a little bit about me. I've kind of done a lot of different things in my career, unlike some of the folks who have come on your show and sold real estate at the age of 18. I did not sell real estate at the age of 18. I landed in this industry after spending a lot of time in others. But just a quick story about me. I actually went to school for genetics. So my undergrad was in genetics at Texas A&M, and I just happened to get swept up in the .com era. So I learned to code, and that made a lot more money than sitting in the lab, doing genetics research. And so I put myself through the back half of college writing software, and came out of school writing software, and did that for a few years out of undergrad, and then. So I'm a techie kind of through and through by background, but that gets boring, and I kind of realized by looking at other people's code that I wasn't the best coder. So
you were probably the best geneticist coder.
I got it.
Yeah, I like that. Those early days of gene therapy, my friend. They were very bad geneticists in those days.
CRISPR. Let's talk about CRISPR. No, let's not.
So I went into product, and I've been in startups, and I've been in the investment business. I've been in the strategy consulting world. But the last company I participated in was an investment of mine. I was a limited partner in it. The company was called Bizarre Voice, based down here where I am today in Austin, Texas. And we grew that company pretty rapidly, a marketing technology company, and took it public for a couple $1 billion back in 2012.
Damn, you're buying dinner next time that we hang out.
So you just drop that, like, oh yeah, we had a successful exit. We sold it for a couple billy. Nice. Nice.
It was a fun ride, but everyone started. I was having fun building and inventing, and everyone started driving their Lamborghinis into the office. And kind of just started started to coast a little bit. And so,
hold on. I don't want to know your one extravagant purchase when you sell a company for a couple $2 billion and you're an LP. I don't want, we don't want the IRS to hear this and come knocking, right? So you got your check. It was whatever size it was. What was your one extravagance that you went out and spent a little coin on that you wouldn't have before?
By the way.
No, or just be honest.
It's funny. I just listened to one of your pods on Picasso, and so this kind of like connects in. Yeah. So I bought a condo in Miami and used it about 5 times total.
Yeah.
So that was a historically stupid purchase, but no, I didn't buy the Lambo, and I didn't roll in the Lambo and to the office, and so tell us
where you're at now with eVocalize.
Yep.
Get a little background on what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, so what eVocalize does, it's a digital marketing platform. It's intended to effectively let data drive decision making. So we take all this like complicated. Digital marketing is really complicated, right? And so most people don't do good digital marketing because it's hard, right? And it takes a lot of data, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of education. And so what we built is technology to let big guys like the franchisor, portals, tech companies wire our technology in, feed it with data, and then hand it to agents, teams, offices, franchisees, and let them run self-service marketing programs without having to know what the hell they're doing. And so it's a little humbling as an entrepreneur founding a company, but we can't. We're white labeled across a lot of the residential real estate space today. Real estate is where we started, but we have, just to give you a size of scale of our company in residential real estate today, we've about 1 million agents, teams, and brokers using our platform that have access to our platform, and about between 100 and 150,000 monthly active users who use our technology to run marketing programs that actually work in the space. And so we're not only in, we can talk more about this, but real estate is only part of what we do, but real estate is where we started, and so we have a pretty large presence.
And you guys are in a lot of other sectors now as well, correct? Because you're not just in residential real estate. You work, I think, you the restaurant industry and a whole bunch of different things.
That's right. I mean, the problem that we're solving is not unique to real estate, right? It's like real estate has listing data and CRM databases and Sphere data and website audiences, like all this stuff, right? But what do we want to do, right? We want, if we're a local business, we want to drive our business, right? We want to bring new customers in. We want to, and that's not unique to real estate. Real estate is like the quintessential local industry, but restaurants have the same thing, right? There are local McDonald's, right? Local TGI Fridays, local Smoothie Kings, a client of ours, like that need to drive business. And if you talk with these in mortgage and insurance and fitness, and so we have franchise groups in all these industries that use our tools, but if you talk with what drove us to this solution, right? You go walk into your local restaurant. I walked into a local restaurant 6 months ago, and it was empty, right? Middle of like dining times, completely empty. And I'd never seen this restaurant before, and it's like 4 blocks from our Austin house. And I walked in, and the franchise owner is in that restaurant. And I said, and he was working the counter, right? And he owns 3 locations, I learned. But I talked to him, and I said, well, your place is kind of empty, man. And I live around the corner, and I've never heard of it. Did you just open? And he said, no, we've been here for 2 years. Yeah. And I said, well, like, why does no one know about this place? And he said, I don't know, man. I'm doing everything I can, but we're really losing our shirts here. I'm barely paying the bills. And I said, what are you doing to market? He said, I'm printing flyers. I went into the local high school and I added to their bulletin board. Oh. And I'm like, man,
solid.
What 15-year-old is going to look at the bulletin board? Mine isn't. Mine's on TikTok, right? So anyway, so I digress a little bit. That all these businesses share that same pattern, right? Things have gone digital, and you kind of have to do that in a pretty sophisticated way to make it work.
So 2 questions then. Number 1 is print dead? Like, is it done? Like, I mean, we at a place where this just needs to move on, or is there still a place for print? I mean, we'll talk about some of this stuff, but like, that's my first question. And then secondly, why does so much real estate marketing or advertising just suck?
Yeah. Because people have no idea what they're doing. No,
which one you gonna take first?
Yeah, take one of those.
Is
but
print
they're
dead, or why does real estate marketing suck?
They almost like fit together, James. So look, guys. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that print was ever alive. You know, look, a billboard. What do we talk about when we're talking about print? We're talking about postcards, mailers. We're talking about billboards. We're talking about handouts, right? We're talking about newspaper ads. Like, when is the last time you picked up a physical newspaper? I can tell you, I'm 47 years old and I don't pick up a physical newspaper. That's for damn sure, right?
Right.
So, I think one of the things that print misses is, first of all, to me, it's not exciting. I throw all of the print mail I get at home away immediately. So I literally have a trash can, I don't know you guys, next to the mailbox, and I dump it all in and just like sort out the 2 or 3 things that I actually should care about. And I actually had to run to our second house up in Seattle. The mailbox filled up when we were not there. Of course, again, the second houses, you're not there that much, right? So it filled up, and I went and yelled at the mail carrier, went in the post office. I'm like, man, you're filling up our mail with all this junk. And then you don't deliver the real stuff, right? Because it fills up and you put a notice and you close us down or whatever. So, man, I think we've gone well past that. And
generational potentially at all? Like, I mean, is it still somewhat generational, or you just think that we're past it?
I think we're past it. I'm 40 and I'm late 40s and it doesn't work for me. You know, the problem is it doesn't have targeting associated with it, right? Like, just imagine.
So let me push back just for auspices of an interesting podcast, because if we all agree, it's not very interesting, right? So while I will agree completely that print is nowhere near as powerful as it was even, I'd say, 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So, but to say it's dead and has no place, like if I had a targeted geographical farm and I did all of the slick shit that you're about to talk to us about digital marketing and all the other cool things you could do, but as an element of a marketing plan, doesn't it still have some value? Especially if you're adding to mindshare and it's a group that you've already targeted, and it is, because you can target, right? You could pull a list of homes that are non-owners, or you could send things to your sphere of influence, or some of the more classic, traditional, boring, aged, not as effective. But is it really dead?
Well, I mean, if you have unlimited budgets, you should do everything all the time. I mean, you know,
touche.
You know, sure. You know, so the thing I'd tell you, Keith, is this is like what do you want to invest in, right? And so our whole lives are about like taking risks, making bets, like determining what to invest in, what to invest our time in and our money in. And real estate, for an agent, for a team, for a brokerage, it's no different, right? You're like, what are you investing in? And the digital platforms have all the eyeballs, have all the time spent now. And so, sure, like that's a fine complementary, small, tiny piece to your puzzle if you have unlimited budgets. Postcard mailing is actually pretty expensive. Like when you bake it all down, if you have a nice postcard, you're spending $1, $2, you know,
probably
$1,
got the right?
Postage.
You could get a jumbo size postcard that looks pretty good.
Point's
for $1.
The same though.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's cheap.
Yeah. You're basically saying if you spend $500 on postcards versus $500 on digital, you think you'll get a better outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to argue the opposite.
What are the numbers?
You built a company saying that.
Well, but I mean, so what are the numbers? How big is the online space? Give us some stats so that people like really understand it. Because I haven't actually looked at this stuff in a while. Like, how big is TikTok and Meta and all of these different things?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Google's the largest, right? So people often forget. People think about Google as just the Google search enterprise. I go to the Google search box and I type in what I want to see, and that's a big portion of the audience. But Google has lots of properties, right? They have something called the Google Display Network that's effectively is advertising on lots of the largest websites across the world. They have YouTube. You know, YouTube's a part of the Google enterprise, and lots of other places. Gmail is another really good one. And so when you knit all those things together, Google has 4.3, I just pulled this morning, 4.3 billion monthly active users.
Sheesh.
In the world. 4.3 billion. So they're the largest, right? Meta is second. They just crossed over the 3 billion threshold in terms of monthly active users. And Meta is, just for everyone listening, if you're not familiar with the new terminology, Meta is WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook primarily. They have some other properties as well, but they're 3 billion. And then TikTok is the fastest growing channel. They crossed over 1 billion monthly active users, 150 million in the US alone, which is their largest market. So, and by the way, we can talk not only about the number of users they have access to, or monthly active users, right? We can talk about the time spent, right? Which is another really interesting piece to this puzzle, because they don't just have your information. You're not just going there once. You're spending a lot of time there as a consumer.
Yeah. What is it? Just curious. What is some of the average times and things that people are online? I mean, I can only imagine, especially with the generations that are below me. That makes myself sound old, but it's got to be massive, the amount of time people spend on their phone. I know I get that stupid display button thing on my phone that says, you spend so much screen time. And I'm like, no, I'm going to delete you. So
what's your guess? The average US consumer, either you guys, like what?
Daily, weekly? What are we looking at?
Daily. Minutes per day.
Minutes per day.
I'd go at least an hour.
On all social media platforms or one specific one?
What was your answer? Was it on all, James?
I was all, and I said an hour. Yeah, okay. I'm going all.
Keith, over, under?
Over.
Definitely over.
Yeah, like a lot, right? Well, I've got an 11-year-old. She's probably good for 3 hours a day. Like, she's bringing up the family average for sure. And if you count YouTube, I mean, kids, if you count YouTube Kids, like all of the different channels that they have, like it's got to be, it's over an hour.
Yeah.
So
Google's
basically
an hour alone, just so you know, like Google's channels.
Jesus. So basically everyone's there. This is where the eyeballs are. And, I think we all understand that. So let's dive into some other stuff. Let's go back to my original question. Why does real estate advertising suck so much? Like, what is it that we're doing wrong that we're, what? Everybody's listening and not, everyone who's listening is judging my question, but they're all nodding going, yeah, we really do. Our advertising really does suck.
It just makes me laugh. It's funny. It's funny because it's true.
What are we doing wrong? Is it that we're just missing the idea of what we're supposed to be promoting and like who the target audience is? I mean, is it about self-promotion too much? Is it should be about the consumer? What's your take on this? I mean, you literally do advertising. This is what you guys do.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, the first thing is, to get back to your billboard point, like people treat digital advertising like a digital billboard, right? So that's like not what we should be doing, for one. And two,
should I have my face on my yard sign? No, never mind. Just kidding.
The real
just
estate
ignore that. Just keep going.
Everything, Keith. So I think you should dip your head a little.
Side joke. Side joke.
Yeah, we'll probably put that on the blooper. We'll explain that someday, not today.
No, but so we either don't. It's this stuff to do this well gets really complicated, right? You have to find the right audiences. You have to figure out the right targeting. You have to figure out how much to spend for that audience. There's a lot to doing this well, right? And so I'm not blaming anyone, right? But what we do in the real estate industry is typically replace the billboard or the postcard in media, right? In digital media, which is okay, but not really where you should go. Or you go straight to leads, right? And you just go like, I'm going lead, low funnel, as much leads as I can get. And a lot of those leads are not great leads if you're not doing the right kind of audience stuff, objective, et cetera.
You're getting just looky-loos versus actual specific people that might be looking at your property, that want that actual home potentially.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the right mix, y'all, is you're everywhere, right? So you can't skip the billion users on TikTok, right? You can't skip the 4 billion users on Google, right? So you need to be digitally present everywhere, and you need to have targeted journeys. Like, you need to be contextually relevant all the time with the right information. You need to give information to people, not just your face out there, right? So
the right content at the right time in front of the right person. Being very specific.
That's right.
Okay.
And then you can ask for the lead, right? And then you can ask for the lead, and then you can nurture that lead, right? And then what you're doing is what the portals do, right? You're then executing digital marketing for yourself and on a local level, like the portals do centrally, and you're going to start winning.
Do you think that artificial intelligence is going to play an important role in this? And where I'm going with that, I'm going to slightly joke with here, but like the concept of, I still love that movie, Minority Report. And that's the best. Oh, come on. But like, if you think about it, it's very specific advertising to a specific individual. Let's take the joke out of it. Like, are we going to a place though, where we're going to have enough data and information to be able to have real-time specific ad generation for that specific user on behalf of this seller? I think I said that correctly. So like, is that where we're moving from a technology perspective?
We've already been there. I mean, we have the technology to do that today. But what holds you back from that in the kind of paid channels are the privacy laws that have been put in place. And so you can still do that here and there in the advertising world, but most of the major channels like a Google and a Meta, you're limited to addressing groups, small groups, but groups of people with messages, right? So you're really not going to be one-to-one generating content, Minority Report style anytime soon. In fact, the world I would say is moving toward more of a privacy opt-in model than an all-in Minority Report one-to-one style marketing. But the technology is there to do it all today. There's no technology gap.
So let's say I own a small independent in anywhere USA, and I'm listening to this and I think, yeah, okay, I hear you. You're probably right. Print's probably dead. But everything that you've said makes almost no sense to me, right? Like I don't go on TikTok. Does that mean I got to start doing these stupid TikTok dances as part of my real estate career? Like, how do I transition from a 52-year-old independent who's got 10 agents in their company to really understanding how I can approach this?
Well, the first thing I say to people is like, yeah, you should like get on TikTok and, have your teenager or your grandkid like teach you how, when I first started using TikTok, and I'm in this business, right? And when I first started thinking about TikTok for our platform 4 or 5 years ago, I asked my daughter, who was 12 at the time, can you like teach me how this TikTok thing works? I legitimately like she said, okay, Dad, and she's like showing me her phone, right? And so that's how I learned. So just go start like watching the types of content that work there. And, I don't think we all have to do dances, but we should be authentic in these channels when we start participating in them. And, we have agents who are, 70 in their 70s and still work and still selling real estate, who are just recording themselves organically on their phone and creating TikTok videos and ads with them. So that's the start, right? It's like, these are organic channels. They don't have to be super polished. And there are tools that can help you do it for you so that you're not having to learn the whole thing, from the ground up. And because the problem you get into, Keith, is kind of what you're alluding to, right? If you're doing this for TikTok, and then you're doing it for Instagram, you're doing it for Reels, you're doing it for Old Blue Facebook, then you're doing it for all these Google channels and Gmail and YouTube. It's like overwhelming from a time perspective. So you really have to find, to be digitally present, you have to find some automation.
Get it.
Well, because like Gary Vee says, you should put out 80 pieces of content a week or whatever, right? But, I mean, look, the guy's been very successful, but he's got a whole team that's backing him and supporting him, right? He spends $1 million a year probably in videographers and editors and sound guys and whatever else. So what do we do? Like, let's say I believe you. What do we do?
I'm biased, right? Yeah, I say like use technology to do it for you, right? Because it's impossible to do it yourself. And if you try to do it yourself, you're going to spend more time, more money, more effort than your competitor who just presses a freaking button. Their brokerage has already wired up all the content, right? They've already wired in all your listings. They've set up the best practices, right? And it's either fully automated or they're pressing a button and 30 seconds later they got it going across platforms.
Well, and they have to.
You have to use tech.
They have to do it that way. By the way, I just wanted all the listeners and viewers to understand that you all just experienced an earthquake. So Keith and I moving there, by the way, was the alerts on our phone saying you duck and cover because the movement of us was actually an earthquake.
By the way,
Keith and I like to call them free back massages.
Yeah, so proof that we're pros though, because if
you
wouldn't have mentioned
rolling
it,
through
we
an
just
earthquake,
roll.
by the way.
I was like, wait, am I getting dizzy? No.
Yeah, no, I was like,
shaking.
wow, I'm feeling really interesting right now. And then I was like, oh, this vibration's kind of interesting too.
Wait,
so,
I have a psychology question. and I know you're a geneticist and a marketing guru, Yoda, and so
the industry definitely calls me a geneticist, Keith.
Yeah.
Undergrad genetics. It's world changing.
I think agents and brokers struggle a little bit with social media in some ways because of, in real estate, when you ask for the order and the person says no, they literally reject you, right? You as a person, as a human being. It's not like if I buy Adidas instead of Nikes, Phil Knight cares, but he doesn't care a lot, right? But when I don't choose you to represent me, I've literally told you no to your face or over text or email. And so some of that rejection avoidance is amplified. Some of that willingness to put yourself out there is a little scarier because they're so, and this is for brokerage too, it's so personal, right? It's deep and heartfelt. How do you get past that? Whether you don't like your voice, I don't like my face, I don't know what to do, I want to be authentic, but if I'm really authentic, what if I ostracize somebody? How do you coach someone who believes us, right, in listening to this, but is like, how do I get past that piece?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just get over it, right? It's there's no way you can do it without doing it. Start small, start short, watch some of look, TikTok content, the stuff that goes to millions and tens of millions and gets millions of views. Don't worry about that to start, right? You're not trying to go viral and be this influencer overnight in TikTok. What you're trying to do is just start to get into the channel, understand what the content is like a little bit. And that doesn't take much effort, right? It's literally creating a TikTok account, following some folks in the area, following some real estate folks, seeing what people are doing, and then record yourself. And you do not want to be perfect in TikTok. That is the point.
Yes.
Man
First blooper on the pod.
I think was that an Austin earthquake? What happened?
Austin just had an earthquake.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. You got to get you back there, bud. Are you there? We got your audio back. I think it went to another thing.
We had
there you go.
There you go. You had your Austin earthquake for the first time.
Austin's known for earthquakes. Yeah. Austin is known for earthquakes.
So I have a question. Kind of, it takes us back just a little bit, but I think it's a really interesting. I've been watching a lot of different speakers on stages at different conferences talking about artificial intelligence, and everybody's got their opinions. Like, if you're not part of it, you're going to get, you're not going to be here, and you got to be, doing this stuff and implementing these things. You made this comment earlier that I think is interesting. Do you think that there's a movement away from, do you actually think there's a movement away from all of this data collection? Like that this whole concept of AI and all of this automation becomes harder because Americans in general are like, I'm sick of all of this creepy shit in my life. And I want to give you an example to set this up. I talked to this company that accesses Microsoft voice language database, whatever it's called. And they can tell by your voice how old you are, your height, your weight, approximately where you were born. It was creepy shit. And I'm going,
I want to try it.
I know, Keith, I figured you'd say that. But there's so many things that you can do with this data, like that comment I made about getting very specific if you wanted to with advertising down to a specific user. But if a lot of these privacy laws change, is it going to hold that kind of innovation back?
Yeah. I mean, from a targeting perspective, for sure. Right. And so, but there's this constant yin and yang and battle back and forth that goes on.
But isn't it part of it, Matt, because it's not that good yet? What I mean by that is, I'll go look at something on Amazon, right? And oftentimes, I'm not a shopper, I'm a buyer. So I'll go look on Amazon and I'll buy it. Well, I keep getting retargeted with the thing I've already bought, which is incredibly annoying and frustrating, right? Yeah. And so it needs to get to I think people would prefer, if it got good enough, I don't mind you sending me things if you send me the right things and stop sending me the wrong things. But in order to do that, it would have to have more data. But I think you might see people opt in if it gets better.
And that's the thought for advertisers. Like there's been a saying in digital marketing for a long time, right? Like the perfect ad is actually information.
Mm-hmm.
It's not advertising, right? And so, that's actually one of our guiding principles when we think about implementing programs. Like if you bring the right home to a home buyer or the right agent who's just sold a similar home around the corner to a potential seller who knows the market better than anyone else because they just guided a similar home and a similar seller through the process right next door. That is information, right? That is valuable information. And so I think we evolved to a world that values, I feel like it's actually already happening. I think the pinnacle moment was a couple years ago where society said, look, we got to crack down on Facebook was a center point to that. And we've got to build all these opt-outs in. And actually the world has limited what you can do with data considerably since then. Apple has really cracked down on the use of their mobile device identifier through IDFA, which is some process they put in place a couple years ago. And so that's already happened, I think. And to your point, Key, I think you're dead on. I hate to agree with you, but I think you're dead. I think you're dead right. Right? Yeah, I think you're dead right. It's like when you get the right message in front of the right person, to James's point, at the right time, it's information and it's valuable, and so you want it. And actually, that works for me online. I'm a backpacker, so I love like getting up into the mountains. And when I spend way too much money on backpacking gear to save like an ounce, of weight on my gear. And when a new cottage backpacking gear comes to me in Instagram or Facebook or Google, I'm like, heck yes,
right.
I want that.
Right. I think that's an interesting comment in that you want to be able to control stuff, but also you want to be able to have information distributed to you that you want. It's kind of like, it's that fight that we're going to go through. By the way, you're just mentioning some stuff. I just learned about this. As I'm making myself probably sound old and dated. What the hell is a MAID number? I just literally found out there's a MAID number.
Is that a gang?
Yeah, I get it, Keith.
Yeah.
So I didn't even actually realize that there's, I guess it's an app. How does it work? A MAID number. So it's
it's a mobile advertising ID, just to define it for folks. So it's a number that every phone, every Android and an iOS device has on it, and it's an identifier for your device that Google treats a little differently than Apple does, but allows advertisers to advertise to you the device.
It's like a fingerprint for your phone
behind it. It's a fingerprint for your phone. Yeah. And it can be changed but no one does that. Right. So it's a pretty good identifier. Now, I just mentioned that's actually James I just mentioned something associated with the MAID number, and that's IDFA, which is Apple's adaptation of that, right? And so Apple has an identifier, and they have significantly cracked down on the amount of data that can be triangulated or attached to the mobile device over the past couple of years.
What is some of the data?
Industry.
What is incorporated into the MAID or this IDFA number? I'm totally, my curiosity's piqued. What kind of data is being transmitted out there through this information? This identifier.
So you may have heard, and the listeners may have heard about cookie information on a browser, right?
Yeah.
And a cookie is just a little piece of text. It's a text blob that sits on your browser, sits underneath your browser, and it just tracks a number. And that number is then communicated to the website that you're using, right? And so IDFA and Google's, I think it's Google Advertising ID, they work in a similar way. So all it is a number that's provided up to Apple and through Google and can be tracked on the websites you browse and the things you do online. And so all of your activities can then be associated with that ID, and you can then be served digital advertising in the ecosystem based on those numbers.
So that's the kind of information that they're wanting to figure out how to allow people to do things, but also not give out too much information. So there's some level of privacy.
And to let humans have choice on if it's shared, right? Because prior, I guess you probably had some choice, but you didn't know you did, and you didn't know how, right? And so they wanted to make it easier to opt out. Is that accurate, Matt?
That's right. And now you have California privacy laws, you have GDPR in the
GDPR?
EU.
What's GDPR?
It's what's the
Is
acronym?
that
That's
like-
the Europe. That's the Europe.
The privacy rights of Europe, basically.
European
Yeah,
privacy
Europe.
regulations. Yeah. And so data protection laws effectively. And so what those laws do, and now you pretty much have to comply in advertising everywhere, because if you're doing anything with any scale, you're hitting California and you're probably hitting Europe. And so what you have to do there is you have to ask. There's consent required for linking some of this data together, PII data or personal information together with these identifiers. And so you have to be. That was never true, right? So that's a new thing over the past few years that the digital advertising has had to adapt to. But I will tell you that digital marketing ecosystem has done a pretty good job keeping targeting levels high while adapting to those
changes.
those new privacy regulations.
So as a digital marketer, how do you feel about that? Like, it makes your job a little harder, right? Probably, I would assume, but maybe a little better, because people who want to be marketed to are saying yes, and people who don't aren't. So where do you how do you feel at night when you're sipping on a bourbon thinking about those recent changes or the changes in the last couple of years?
I like consumer choice, right? So to me, they bury it a little bit, but you can anyone can go into Facebook or Instagram or any of the online platforms. All of them are required now to have opt-outs, data control. You can block certain groups of things. You can block specific advertisers. You can block everyone from seeing your data, right? And so once I have that control as a consumer, like if you think about it from a first principles approach, like the consumer should have that control of what happens to their data. And so regardless of running a digital marketing technology company or not, I think that's a cornerstone of what we personally I feel like we should do as a society. And we've done that. We've taken a lot of steps in that way. Yeah. Now, I think there's some holes, the telecom companies, there's some holes in those laws that people don't think about.
Go figure.
You mean like the calls we all get about our our automotive warranty?
Yeah.
There's some data leakage besides those things, right? But I'll put it that way.
So two final questions, because we gotta wrap here in just a few minutes. I'll take the first. Keith will wrap with this question he always likes to ask, but I want to pivot just slightly. So obviously everyone in residential real estate is talking about lawsuits, and we're not going to go into that right now, but I do want to actually somewhat ask this question related to it. How does a buyer's agent prove their value in this post-lawsuit world through this digital advertising mechanism? So what do you think they should be doing there?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know far more about the lawsuit conditions and situations.
We don't need to go into that. Just want to talk about the advertising side.
Than I do, but from a pure advertising perspective, I tend to think, and listening to smart folks like you talk about the subject, I tend to think that buyers agents. I've bought and sold many, many houses, and there have been lots of times where I've been super thankful. I've had a buyer's agent by my side guiding me through the process, right? And you've done podcasts that have addressed this and have talked about this concept. And so I don't think buyer's agents go away in the industry. I think they change, and they have to justify what they're doing in their activities, right? And so so now you have to go out and maybe do a little bit of different type of marketing and expose yourself out there and talk about how you're helping, you're educating the market, right? So as a buyer's agent, I think if you're paying attention out there and you're a buyer's agent, you need to think about how you're going to get in front of buyers so that you're bringing them into the funnel. They're already doing a lot of their own research. We know that. You might have them do a little more of their own driving around, but you need to educate them on the value that you provide, because buyer's agents do a hell of a lot of work, as we in the industry all know. And but they're not always, the value is not always front and center.
Right.
Right.
And so to me, it's fundamentally, and of course I'm biased here, but it's fundamentally a marketing problem, and it's an education problem. How do we get the word out? So you should be pumping out content across channels, educating folks on the value of your services and the differentiation of them versus others.
One of the things you could do, and just making me think about it a little bit, is, I always find consumers are trying to do a lot of their own education and research on the buy side, but they're sorting through lots of data. I've seen some really great agents do things like videos on neighborhoods explaining the types of houses are here, and who is the builder, and what's the quality of the home, and what's the appreciation rate's been in this neighborhood, and just content like that. NER did a really good piece, the 179 things a buyer's agent does. To me, there's an entire marketing campaign right there. Mm-hmm. Like, you could take those points and create an entire digital marketing campaign around services. You're right in that we advertise the hell out of all the stuff we do on the list side, and we suck at articulating the things that we do on the buy side, but it's not complicated. Just start looking at all the things that you do, look at what the questions buyers are asking, and then turn those into content pieces, because it's going to resonate with the buyer going, oh yeah, I'm having that exact problem. I should talk to this agent about that. I think it's a great comment. By the way, great product for eVocalize to do is an entire buy-side content strategy. Yeah. All right, Keith, wrap us up. I know that this is kind of...
this is what we always end on. So if you were an agent or an owner of a real estate operation, what's the one thing you would implement today to help or change your business?
So I think the one thing that this is all everybody. Does everyone answer this in a self-serving way on this podcast?
No, but it's okay if you do.
You can, but just make it so it's useful. Yeah.
Here's the mentality. I would say there's a mentality that the industry needs more of, right? And that's and it's hard in times like this that are tight in the industry. But long-term thinking, right? So if you think about, we've talked a lot about data, we've talked a lot about marketing, but I made mention early in this episode about how the portals do it, right? And so the portals are great at long-term thinking, right? So they're long-term thinking, they're marketing out in these channels that we're talking to you about, right? They're trying to get folks' attention so they come to their site, so they can get them to look at homes, so they can build a relationship with them, so that they're ready when they're ready to convert into a lead. And then they have nurturing that goes out automatically to keep people involved and in the ecosystem, right? So they're not going out and trying to get leads that convert tomorrow. They're trying to get in, be the first eyeball in front of consumers. And so to me, that's what the industry, if the industry wants to spend less money on, on the Zillows, Zillow of the world, buying leads late stage, and they want to control their own destiny and do it more efficiently, if me as a technologist, if I'm sitting in the chair of the everyday agent, I think 6 months, a year out, and I say, I'm going to plant the seeds to work and build my database over time. So my database gets larger, so I have more data, and that will make me money as I nurture them. But it's that patience. We in COVID, when COVID hit in March, we saw advertising fall off a cliff. Marketing dropped precipitously in the first couple of months. And we had a lot of data showing a lot of consumer demand. That demand was not stopping. So we started publishing a report out there to the industry and telling them, think long term. We did a retrospective and looked a couple months ago at the agents who kept pumping dollars through marketing during that time. And they've made 400% more money than the people who paid back, pulled back during that 3 to 4 month period where the world was uncertain. So that's my lesson. Think long term, keep investing. Maybe if you need to back it off a little bit to get through it, do that. But stay in market, stay digitally present.
Matt, that was awesome. Super appreciative of having you on the show. You are officially our digital advertising. I guess Obi-Wan Kenobi would be better, I guess, at this point. So genuinely, thanks for being here. And we'll look forward to having you back in the future. So
thanks guys. Appreciate it.
That was fun. Thanks.
It's our job to say out loud what everybody's only thinking to themselves. It's your job to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode.